Hold on tight, because today's case is going to chill you to your bones. This story is one of the most horrific crimes you could imagine. A story of innocence lost and a twisted murderer whose actions shook an entire nation. Buckle up, we're diving deep into the tragic story of 6-year-old Alesha MacPhail and the monster who took her life, Aaron Campbell. Imagine being 6 years old, a carefree child with your whole life ahead of you. Alesha MacPhail was that child. She had her whole future in front of her, filled with hope and dreams. She was loved, cherished, and part of a tight-knit family. But in the summer of 2018, her life was brutally snatched away in the most unimaginable way. But the thing is, it wasn't some random tragedy. No, it was someone from her own neighborhood, someone who'd been living among her family, someone who had a sinister plan all along. Let's rewind for a second. It's July 2018 on the Isle of Bute, off the coast of Scotland. Alesha had been staying with her grandparents, a visit that was supposed to be filled with the joy of summer. But on the night of July 1st, she went to bed in her grandmother's house and never woke up. When she went missing, everyone panicked. You'd expect a search for a child that young to be fast and furious. And it was, but what they found was even worse than anyone could have imagined. It was Aaron Campbell, a 16-year-old local boy, who took Alesha's life. Yeah, you heard that right, a 16-year-old. This wasn't some random stranger who came out of the shadows. Aaron Campbell lived just a few doors down from Alesha's grandparents. They knew him. They trusted him. Little did they know, this boy was harboring a darkness no one could see. Campbell had been watching Alesha for some time. He'd been obsessed with her. And on the night she went missing, he snuck into the house, grabbed Alesha from her bed, and carried her out into the darkness. No one saw it coming, and by the time the search started, it was already too late. Campbell had already taken her into the woods and done the unspeakable. Now, I want you to really let this sink in. Aaron Campbell didn't just kill Alesha. He tortured her. He assaulted her in the most horrific ways imaginable. And the worst part? He showed no remorse. Not even a hint of it. He had no emotion as he told investigators his version of the story. No tears. No shame. Just a cold, calculated killer. The police, of course, were doing everything they could to find Alesha. But when they finally arrested Aaron, they couldn't believe their ears. He had this bizarre, eerie calm about him. He was the last person anyone would have suspected. And yet, there he was, confessing to the crime like it was nothing. No one could understand how a boy who'd grown up in a normal community could commit such an atrocious act. Campbell was eventually convicted of murder, and the whole community was left reeling. The grief, the pain, and the heartbreak of Alesha's family were unimaginable. And it doesn't end there, because even after the conviction, many were left asking, how could this happen? How could someone do this to a child, and to a family that trusted him? Alesha MacPhail was just a little girl. She had her whole life ahead of her, and in an instant, that was stolen by someone who should have never been trusted. Aaron Campbell, in the end, was sentenced to life in prison, but for Alesha's family, there's no sentence that can bring their little girl back.
The disappearance of Alesha MacPhail, a night of unimaginable horror. Picture this, a quiet, peaceful island off the coast of Scotland, where everyone knows each other, where crime is rare, and where children can play outside without fear. The Isle of Bute was that kind of place, a tight-knit community where doors were often left unlocked, where neighbors looked out for one another, and where the worst thing that might happen was a bit of gossip spreading too fast. But on the night of July 1st, 2018, that illusion of safety was shattered forever. 6-year-old Alesha MacPhail was spending part of her summer vacation with her father, Robert MacPhail, and her grandparents in their home on the island. She was a bright, bubbly little girl with her whole life ahead of her, a child who loved playing, laughing, and being doted on by her family. That night, she went to bed like any other night, tucked in, safe and sound in her room. No one could have imagined that within hours, she would vanish without a trace. It was Alesha's grandmother, Angela, who first realized something was terribly wrong. She woke up in the early hours of July 2nd, her instincts screaming that something wasn't right. Maybe it was a mother's intuition. Maybe it was just the eerie silence of the house. But when she went to check on Alesha, her heart stopped. The bed was empty. The covers were disturbed. The window was slightly open. Panic set in immediately. The family searched the house, calling her name, hoping, praying that she had just wandered off to another room, maybe fallen asleep somewhere else. But Alesha was nowhere to be found. The terror that must have gripped them in that moment is unimaginable. A child doesn't just disappear in the middle of the night. Not like this. Not without a trace. Robert, Alesha's father, called the police, his voice shaking with fear. Within minutes, officers were at the house, questioning the family, searching the property, trying to piece together what could have happened. Had she sleepwalked? Had someone taken her? The possibilities raced through everyone's minds, each one more horrifying than the last. As dawn broke, the entire island mobilized. Neighbors, friends, even strangers joined in the search, combing through fields, streets, and wooded areas, calling out Alesha's name. The police brought in search dogs, drones, and helicopters, desperate to find any sign of the little girl. The community held on to hope. Maybe she had gotten lost. Maybe she was hiding somewhere, scared but alive. But then, the worst possible news came. Around 9 a.m., a member of the search party made a gut-wrenching discovery in a secluded wooded area near an abandoned hotel. There, lying among the trees, was Alesha's lifeless body. The scene was one of pure horror. She had been brutally assaulted, her tiny body bearing the marks of unspeakable violence. The realization hit like a sledgehammer. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a tragic case of a child wandering off and getting lost. This was murder. The investigation shifted immediately. Police sealed off the area, forensic teams scoured for evidence, and detectives began questioning everyone who had been near the house that night. At first, suspicion fell on those closest to Alesha, her father, his friends, anyone who had access to the home. But as the hours passed, a different, even more shocking suspect emerged. Aaron Campbell, a 16-year-old boy who lived nearby, had been seen acting strangely in the days leading up to the murder. He knew the family. He had been in their home before. And when police brought him in for questioning, his story didn't add up. He claimed he had nothing to do with Alesha's disappearance, but his alibi was full of holes. Then came the damning evidence. Forensic tests revealed Campbell's DNA on Alesha's body. His phone records showed suspicious searches in the days before the murder. Queries like how long does DNA last and how to avoid being convicted of rape. CCTV footage placed him near the crime scene that night. And when confronted with the mounting proof, Campbell's cold, detached demeanor sent chills down the spines of even the most hardened detectives. Eventually, he confessed, not out of remorse, but because he had no other way out. He admitted to sneaking into the house in the dead of night, taking Alesha from her bed, carrying her to the woods, and committing unspeakable acts before ending her life. His motive? I just wanted to see if I could get away with it. The trial that followed was a media frenzy, with the nation watching in horror as the details emerged. Campbell's defense tried to shift blame, even suggesting that Alesha's father's girlfriend was responsible, a claim that was quickly dismantled by overwhelming forensic evidence. The jury took just 4 hours to reach a verdict: guilty. The judge, in sentencing Campbell to a minimum of 27 years in prison, called him the most dangerous and depraved individual he had ever encountered. But for Alesha's family, no sentence could ever be enough. Her mother, Georgina Lockrane, wept in court, her grief a raw, open wound. Alesha's grandparents, who had last seen her alive in their home, were left shattered, their lives forever marked by the loss of their beloved granddaughter. In the aftermath, the case sparked outrage across the UK, with calls for tougher sentencing for juvenile offenders and debates about how such evil could exist in someone so young. Vigils were held in Alesha's memory, her name becoming a symbol of innocence stolen far too soon. But none of that brings her back. Alesha MacPhail should have grown up. She should have gone to school, made friends, fallen in love, lived a full life. Instead, her story ends in darkness, her memory forever tied to the monster who took her away. And as we tell her story, we remember one chilling truth. Sometimes, evil doesn't come from a stranger in the shadows. Sometimes it's the boy next door. Hashtag the calculated killer. Aaron Campbell's chilling premeditation. The most terrifying aspect of Alesha MacPhail's murder wasn't just the brutality. It was the cold, methodical planning behind it. Aaron Campbell didn't act on impulse. He didn't snap in a moment of rage. He researched, prepared, and meticulously plotted how to commit his crime and evade justice. Hashtag the digital trail of a predator. In the days leading up to the murder, Campbell's internet search history revealed a mind already fixated on violence and forensic countermeasures. Among his disturbing queries: how long does DNA last? How to avoid being convicted of rape? Can you get DNA from saliva? What destroys DNA evidence? These weren't random, morbid curiosities. They were the searches of someone engineering a crime. He wasn't just fantasizing, he was studying. He wanted to know how to assault and kill without leaving a trace. Hashtag the night of the murder. A predator's precision. Campbell didn't stumble upon Alesha by chance. He had been inside her grandparents' home before. He knew the layout. He knew where she slept. On the night of July 1st, 2018, he waited until the house was silent. Then, like a shadow, he slipped inside. He didn't panic. He didn't hesitate. He moved with purpose straight to Alesha's room, where he snatched the sleeping 6-year-old from her bed. He carried her out into the night, avoiding main roads, sticking to the darkness. He took her to a secluded wooded area near an abandoned hotel, a place he likely scouted in advance. There, he committed unspeakable acts before smothering her to death, ensuring she couldn't scream, couldn't identify him. Hashtag the cover-up, a killer's arrogance. After the murder, Campbell didn't flee in panic. He coolly returned home, washed himself, and disposed of evidence. He thought he had outsmarted the system, but he made 2 fatal mistakes. 1. He left DNA behind. Despite his research, forensic teams found his genetic material on Alesha's body. 2. His phone betrayed him. Location data placed him at the crime scene, and his deleted search history was recovered. Hashtag the interrogation. A psychopath unmasked. When police first questioned him, Campbell played the role of a confused, innocent teen. But as detectives confronted him with evidence, his internet searches, his DNA, his phone records, his mask slipped. He didn't break down. He didn't show remorse. Instead, he confessed with eerie detachment, describing the murder in chilling detail as if recounting a video game. His motive? I just wanted to see if I could get away with it. Hashtag a legacy of horror. Campbell's case forced the UK to confront an uncomfortable truth. Evil doesn't always look monstrous. Sometimes it's the quiet boy next door, the one who researches his crimes like a school project, who kills not out of passion, but out of curiosity. His sentence, a minimum of 27 years, was one of the harshest ever given to a juvenile in Scotland. But for Alesha's family, no punishment will ever be enough. Because the most horrifying part isn't just that he killed her. It's that he planned it. #, the web of lies. Aaron Campbell's desperate attempt to escape justice. When police first questioned 16-year-old Aaron Campbell about the disappearance and murder of Alesha MacPhail, he didn't panic. He didn't break down. Instead, he did what psychopaths do best. He lied with chilling precision, weaving an elaborate story designed to shift suspicion onto others while maintaining an air of innocence. His deception wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment cover-up. It was a calculated performance, one that unraveled only when forensic evidence left him with nowhere left to hide. #, the initial lie, playing the bystander. In the chaotic hours after Alesha's body was discovered, Campbell inserted himself into the investigation. He joined search parties, spoke to neighbors, and even interacted with Alesha's grieving family, all while knowing exactly what had happened to her. When detectives first brought him in for questioning, he acted confused, even concerned. "I don't know anything," he claimed. It was at home all night. But police quickly noticed inconsistencies. His alibi, that he had been messaging his girlfriend late into the night, didn't hold up. Phone records showed his device moving near the crime scene around the time of the abduction. When pressed, Campbell didn't sweat, didn't stammer. He simply adjusted his story, refining his lies like a chess player anticipating the next move. #, the second lie. Pointing the finger at innocent people. Realizing his initial story was crumbling, Campbell pivoted to a far more sinister tactic. He blamed someone else, He told detectives that Alesha's father's girlfriend, Toni McLaughlin, was the real killer. He claimed she had a grudge against the family and had threatened Alesha before. He even suggested she had manipulated him into helping cover up the crime. It was a bold, calculated move, one designed to exploit existing tensions within Alesha's family. For a brief moment, investigators had to consider the possibility. They questioned McLaughlin, searched her phone, and scrutinized her alibi. But the story fell apart almost immediately. McLaughlin had solid proof of her whereabouts that night. There was no DNA linking her to the crime. And most damning of all, Campbell's own phone records contradicted his claims, #. #, the third lie. The partial confession. Cornered by irrefutable evidence, Campbell shifted tactics again. He admitted to being near the scene, but insisted he had only found Alesha's body, not killed her. "I saw her lying there, but I panicked and ran," he said, feigning fear. "I didn't want to get in trouble." It was a clever play, a half-truth designed to explain away his DNA while still avoiding a murder charge. But detectives weren't fooled. #, the final unraveling. The full confession. After hours of interrogation, confronted with undeniable forensic proof, Campbell finally dropped the act. But even then, he didn't cry. He didn't show remorse. Instead, he described the murder in detached, clinical detail, as if recounting a movie plot. He admitted to sneaking into Alesha's home. He admitted to carrying her to the woods. He admitted to assaulting and killing her. His only explanation? "I just wanted to see if I could get away with it." #, why his lies matter. Campbell's deception wasn't just the panicked reaction of a scared teenager. It was the deliberate strategy of a predator. 1. He manipulated the investigation. By blaming others, he wasted police resources and inflicted additional pain on Alesha's family. 2. He thought he was smarter than everyone. His confidence in his lies revealed his narcissism. 3. He never showed remorse. Even when caught, he spoke of the murder with eerie calmness. Hashtag the aftermath. A justice system tested. Campbell's lies forced detectives to work twice as hard to secure justice. But in the end, science and persistence broke him. His case remains a haunting example of how evil can hide behind a mask of normalcy, and how, no matter how clever a killer thinks they are, the truth always comes out. For Alesha's family, the knowledge that her murderer spent days pointing fingers, spinning stories, and trying to escape blame only added another layer of horror to an already unimaginable crime. Because the most terrifying part wasn't just that he killed her. It's that he thought he could lie his way out of it. Hashtag the mind of a monster. Aaron Campbell's chilling admission. Asterisk, I just want to see if I could get away with it. Asterisk, these 11 words, spoken without remorse by 16-year-old Aaron Campbell after confessing to the brutal murder of 6-year-old Alesha MacPhail, reveal one of the most disturbing aspects of this case: the complete absence of any recognizable human motive. There is no rage, no revenge, no twisted love. Just an experiment in human cruelty. Hashtag the psychology of a predator. Forensic psychiatrists who evaluated Campbell described him as exhibiting classic psychopathic traits with a particular emphasis on lack of empathy. He viewed Alesha not as a human child, but as an object for his experiment. Grandiose sense of self. His belief he could outsmart an entire police force. Thrill-seeking behavior. The murder was essentially an extreme form of risk-taking. Dr. Helen Morrison, a forensic psychiatrist who has studied serial killers, noted that Campbell's statement aligns with what she calls homicidal curiosity, the desire to kill simply to experience it. Hashtag the planning phase. A crime as experiment. Campbell's actions in the days leading up to the murder reveal meticulous preparation. 1. Digital footprint. His internet searches about DNA evidence and rape convictions weren't casual, they were research. 2. Surveillance. Knowing the layout of the house and Alesha's bedroom suggests prior observation. 3. Timing. Choosing the early hours when the household would be in deepest sleep. This wasn't impulsive violence. It was a clinical operation planned with the precision of a scientist setting up a lab experiment. Hashtag the night of the murder. Executing the plan. Every action Campbell took that night served his central motive. Entering silently, testing his ability to break in undetected. Abducting Alesha, a challenge to see if he could remove her without waking others. Choosing the location, the woods represented a controlled environment for his experiment. Even the sexual assault appears to have been part of the test. Could he commit the ultimate violation and leave no evidence? Hashtag the aftermath, the ultimate test. Campbell's behavior following the murder demonstrates his continued commitment to his original motive. Joining search parties, a perverse test of his acting abilities. Initial lies to police, gauging whether his stories would hold up. Blaming others, an attempt to manipulate the investigation. His eventual confession only came when confronted with irrefutable DNA evidence, the one variable his research hadn't accounted for. Hashtag a new kind of killer. What makes Campbell particularly disturbing is that he represents an emerging category of offender, the digital native psychopath. His approach combined online research to understand forensic limitations, gaming mentality, treating the murder as a real-life challenge to be won, social media awareness, understanding how to present a normal facade. Psychologist Dr. Robert Hare, creator of the psychopathy checklist, noted that while most psychopaths have some emotional motivation, even if twisted, Campbell's pure experimental motive is exceptionally rare and dangerous. Hashtag the implications for society. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. 1. Can we identify such individuals before they act? Campbell showed no obvious warning signs. 2. Is our justice system equipped? His youth complicated sentencing despite the brutality. 3. Does internet access enable such crimes? His research was conducted openly online. The most chilling realization? Campbell's motive suggests he would have continued testing his limits if not caught. Alesha may have been just the first victim in what could have become a series of escalating experiments. Hashtag the unanswered question. What remains most terrifying is that we may never truly understand why Aaron Campbell needed to know if he could get away with murder. The blankness behind his confession suggests a void where normal human conscience should exist, making him perhaps the most genuinely frightening kind of killer. Not one driven by passion or pathology, but by simple, immoral curiosity. As one detective put it, we can understand jealousy, rage, even twisted love. But how do you protect society against someone who kills just to see if they can? The answer, tragically, is that sometimes we can't until it's too late. Hashtag the irrefutable proof. How forensic science exposed Aaron Campbell. The murder of 6-year-old Alesha MacPhail might have remained an unsolved mystery were it not for the relentless march of forensic science. While Aaron Campbell believed he had committed the perfect crime, modern investigative techniques turned his arrogance against him, building an unassailable case from the very evidence he thought he had controlled. This is how science stripped away his lies and revealed the truth. Hashtag the DNA that couldn't be denied. The most damning evidence came from biological traces left at the crime scene. Forensic experts recovered 1. Campbell's semen from Alesha's body, the most intimate violation becoming the most conclusive proof. 2. Skin cells under Alesha's fingernails, showing her desperate struggle against her attacker. 3. Saliva traces on her skin, matching Campbell's DNA profile. What made this particularly significant was how it contradicted Campbell's internet searches about how long DNA lasts. His misunderstanding of forensic science proved fatal to his defense. Biological evidence persists much longer than he anticipated, especially in cool Scottish weather conditions. The DNA match wasn't just probable, it was mathematically certain. The chances of it belonging to someone else were calculated at 1 in 18 quadrillion, a number so large it essentially means impossible. Hashtag digital footprints, the electronic witness. While Campbell carefully avoided human witnesses, his electronic devices betrayed him. Mobile phone mass data placed his device moving from his home to the crime scene and back during the murder window. Deleted search history recovered by digital forensics teams revealed his premeditation. Step counting data from his smartphone matched the route described in his confession. Most damning was the time-stamped selfie he'd taken hours before the murder. The same clothing fibers found on Alesha's body were visible in the photo. Hashtag CCTV, the unblinking eye. Rothsey's limited camera network nonetheless captured crucial moments. 1. Campbell's figure carrying a bundle near the murder scene at 2:17 a.m. 2. His return journey alone 47 minutes later. 3. Midnight convenience store footage showing the distinctive shoes later found with Alesha's blood. Digital enhancement revealed the shoes' unique or pattern-matched impressions near the body. Hashtag the forensic timeline. Investigators reconstructed the crime with scientific precision. 23:58. Campbell seen buying snacks at convenience store. 02:03. Phone mask shows his device moving toward Alesha's home. 02:17. CCTV captures figure carrying bundle. 02:47. Disturbed foliage indicates assault occurring. 03:04. Phone pings returning toward Campbell's home. 06:30. Digital pedometer shows unusual morning activity. Evidence disposal. Hashtag the clothes that convicted him. Forensic analysis of Campbell's wardrobe proved devastating. Fibers from his favorite hoodie found on Alesha. Mud patterns on his sneakers matched the crime scene. Bleach stains on jeans indicated attempted cleanup. A single strand of Alesha's hair in his laundry basket. Hashtag the failed cover-up. Campbell's attempts to destroy evidence actually strengthened the case. 1. Bleach nails showed he knew about trace evidence. 2. Internet history deletions demonstrated consciousness of guilt. 3. Burn marks in his garden where clothes may have been destroyed. Each effort to conceal became proof of premeditation. Hashtag the forensic psychologist verdict. Beyond physical evidence, behavioral analysis sealed the case. Language patterns in his texts matched the killer's profile. Google searches showed escalating violent fantasies. Post-crime behavior matched known offender patterns. Hashtag why the evidence was unbeatable. This case represented a perfect storm of forensic disciplines. 1. Traditional fingerprinting, window entry point. 2. Digital forensics, phone movements. 3. Pathology, time and cause of death. 4. Trace evidence, fibers, soil analysis. 5. DNA phenotyping, predicting appearance from genetic material. Hashtag the legacy for future investigations. Alesha's case demonstrated how even careful killers can't anticipate all forensic angles. New technologies like touch DNA from skin cells, digital breadcrumbs, app data, metadata, environmental DNA, traces from air, water, are making it increasingly impossible to commit the perfect crime. Hashtag the final irony. Campbell's belief in his own superiority became his undoing. His internet searches about forensics actually guided investigators to look for evidence he thought he'd hidden. In the end, science spoke louder than his lies, proving that in the modern world, every criminal leaves behind a trail of invisible evidence. They just don't always know it. When Aaron Campbell was sentenced to a minimum of 27 years in prison for the abduction, rape, and murder of 6-year-old Alesha MacPhail, the courtroom erupted in outrage. The judge's words, that Campbell was the most dangerous and depraved individual he had ever encountered, only deepened the public's fury. How could someone capable of such calculated evil be eligible for release before his 50th birthday? The debate that followed exposed deep flaws in the justice system and left a grieving family questioning whether true justice even existed. The sentencing hearing, a chilling display of indifference. The courtroom on March 21, 2019, was thick with tension. Alesha's family sat clutching photos of their bright-eyed little girl, while Campbell slouched in the dock, showing no emotion. When Judge Lord Matthews delivered the sentence, life imprisonment with a minimum term of 27 years, the reaction was immediate. Alesha's mother, Georgina Lockrane, screamed, "That's not enough," before collapsing in tears. Campbell smirked as he was led away, a final act of cruelty that sealed his reputation as a remorseless psychopath. The judge acknowledged the sentence might seem inadequate, but explained his hands were tied by sentencing guidelines for juveniles. For many, This moment crystallized a painful truth. The law was not built for monsters like Campbell. Why 27 years? The legal loophole that sparked outrage. Campbell's sentence was controversial for several reasons. 1. His age worked in his favor. At 16 years old, Campbell was considered a child under Scottish law, despite the premeditated brutality of his crime. Sentencing guidelines required the judge to consider rehabilitation potential, though psychiatrists deemed Campbell a high-risk, psychopathic offender. Precedent for juvenile killers. Other UK teen murderers had received 15 to 25 years. International human rights laws protecting young offenders from inhumane punishment. 2. The life sentence was misleading. While Campbell received a life sentence, in Scotland, this only means a minimum term before parole consideration. Unlike in the US, where life without parole exists, Scottish law almost guarantees eventual release for juveniles. 3. The brutality was ignored. The judge admitted the crime was among the worst ever prosecuted in Scotland, yet the sentence didn't reflect the sexual sadism of the murder, Campbell's total lack of remorse, his boastful confessions to prison staff, public backlash, justice for Alesha. The outcry was immediate and fierce. 1. Media fury. The Scottish Sun ran the headline, 27 years for the devil. BBC Scotland was flooded with complaints that the sentence valorized the killer over the victim. 2. Political fallout. Then Justice Secretary Humza Yousaf faced demands to reform juvenile sentencing. A petition for whole life tariffs for child killers gained 150,000 signatures. 3. The family's anguish. Alesha's grandfather, Alesha MacPhail, spoke for millions when he said, he planned it. He enjoyed it. He'd do it again. And in 27 years, he'll be free to try. Where's the justice in that? Comparative cases. Did Campbell get off easy? Other juvenile killers received harsher sentences for less premeditated crimes. Case age crime sentence. Aaron Campbell 16 rape plus murder. Premeditated 27 years min. James Bulger killers 10 toddler murder. Impulsive 15 years later increased. Edinburgh baby killer 14 murder of infant life. No parole. Legal experts noted the inconsistency. Why did Campbell's extreme planning reduce his time behind bars? The psychological danger. Would Campbell reoffend? Psychiatric evaluations suggested Campbell was incurable. Scored 38 out of 40 on the psychopathy checklist, higher than many serial killers. Told prison guards he wasn't sorry and found the murder exciting. Had fantasies about killing again if released. Yet parole board would be forced to consider him in 2046, when he'd be 43 years old, theoretically less risky due to age. The lingering question, was this really justice? As the years pass, the debate hasn't faded. For the sentence, rehabilitation over retribution, the Scottish system's philosophy. Brain development arguments. Teens are impulsive, even if evil. Against the sentence. Some crimes defy redemption. Can a child rapist/murderer ever be rehabilitated? The victim's rights. Alesha got no second chance. Why should her kill her? Conclusion. A system that failed. The tragedy of Alesha's case isn't just her death. It's that the justice system, in trying to be fair, became an accomplice to her family's endless torment. 27 years means Alesha's parents will grow old knowing her killer may walk free. Campbell could live decades longer than his victim ever did. No amount of time will ever balance the scales. As one detective privately admitted, we put him away, but we didn't really make him pay. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. For Alesha, and for society, 27 years was never going to be enough. The only true justice would have been ensuring Aaron Campbell never saw daylight again. And on that, the system failed. The horrific murder of 6-year-old Alesha MacPhail by 16-year-old Aaron Campbell didn't just devastate a family. It sent shockwaves through the entire British legal system. Campbell's 27-year minimum sentence, despite the premeditated brutality of his crime, ignited fierce debates about how society should punish juveniles who commit acts of unspeakable evil. The case became a lightning rod for legal reform, exposing deep flaws in a system that struggled to balance age, accountability, and public safety. 1. The core controversy. Can a 16-year-old truly be a child? Campbell's case forced lawmakers to confront an uncomfortable question. At what point does a teenager's age no longer excuse their actions? The legal reality in Scotland. Under Scots law, anyone under 18 is considered a child in sentencing. Judges must prioritize rehabilitation over pure punishment. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child pressures courts to avoid cruel sentences. The public outcry. If he's old enough to rape and murder, he's old enough to rot in jail. Daily Mail headline. A YouGov poll showed 82% of Scots believe Campbell should have received life without parole. Alesha's family argued that the law valued the killer's future over their daughter's stolen life. Legal experts were torn. Pro-reform side. Brain development isn't complete at 16. Impulse control is weaker. Victims' rights side. Premeditated evil isn't about impulse. It's about character. 2. The precedent problem. Why wasn't Campbell locked up forever? Campbell's sentence was not an outlier. It was the norm under UK juvenile sentencing guidelines. How other juvenile killers were treated. Case age crime sentence. Aaron Campbell 16 premeditated rape plus murder 27 years min. James Bulger killers 10 abduction / torture of toddler 8 years. Later increased. Edinburgh baby killer 14 murder of infant life. No parole. Why the inconsistency? James Bulger's killers 10 years old were initially given just 8 years before public outrage forced a review. Campbell 16 got more time, but critics argued that premeditation should have triggered a whole life term. The whole life tariff debate. In England, adults who commit especially heinous murders can get life without parole. Scotland has never imposed this on a juvenile. Legal scholars asked, if not for Campbell, then who? 3. The psychopathy factor. Can teens like Campbell ever be reformed? Campbell wasn't just a troubled teen. Psychiatrists diagnosed him as a high-risk psychopath. The psychiatric findings. Scored 38 out of 40 on the Hare psychopathy checklist, higher than many serial killers. 0 remorse. Bragged about the murder in prison. High reoffending risk. Doctors said he'd likely kill again if released. The legal dilemma. If a 16-year-old is incurably psychopathic, should the law still treat him as a child? Can rehabilitation ever work for someone who kills for fun? Campbell's case exposed a glaring loophole. The law assumes all juveniles can change, but science shows psychopathy is often lifelong. 4. The political fallout calls for reform. The backlash was swift and fierce. Public pressure. 150,000 plus signatures on a petition demanding stricter juvenile sentencing. Protests outside Scottish Parliament with signs like Alesha's Law Now. Legal changes proposed. Alesha's Amendment. Allow whole life terms for juveniles in exceptionally sadistic cases. Psychopathy exceptions. Let judges override youth discounts for diagnosed psychopaths. Victim impact weighting. Require courts to weigh victims' age / suffering more heavily. The resistance. Human rights groups pushed back. Barbaric to lock up children forever. Amnesty International. Brain science proves teens aren't fully responsible. Justice reform advocates. 5. The unanswered question. What is justice for Alesha? Years later, the debate still rages. The family's anguish. Alesha's mother, Georgina Lockrane, put it bluntly. The law cares more about his human rights than my daughter's right to live. The lingering fear. Campbell will be eligible for parole at age 43. If released, he'd be stronger than he was at 16. Smarter about avoiding detection. Still psychopathic. The legacy. Alesha's case didn't just change laws. It changed how society sees juvenile evil. Before Campbell, kids can't be monsters. After Campbell, some can, and the law isn't ready for them. Conclusion, a system at a crossroads. The legal system faced an impossible choice. Uphold juvenile protections and risk freeing a predator. Discard them and risk punishing redeemable youths too harshly. In the end, Campbell's case proved one grim truth. Some crimes defy the law's categories. And until justice finds a way to confront pure evil in a child's body, there will always be another Alesha, and another family screaming that 27 years isn't enough.